Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in. How about you?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
Yeah. I've got my little office set up in my mom's living room. So,
Awesome.
yeah. Choose backgrounds.
Do you have any special requests as your backup here?
No, I would just say if you can help check people in.
Oh, right.
And do you have the list?
I will go get the list.
If not, I can send you a link to it. I can give you the link.
I have it. I have it.
Okay. So we'll do that. And then mainly, if you and Jennifer can keep an eye on the chat while I'm talking, since I don't have it up because that tends to distract me. But if somebody has a pertinent question while I'm talking, like wants to clarify something, feel free to just jump in and say, hey, we have a question.
Okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah. Other than that, then we can just sort of field questions at the end. Yeah, if you just sort of help keep track of questions and stuff like that, I think that would be great.
Okay, good. All right. I know what works for me.
Yeah. Any other suggestions that, let's see.
Where is, I'm in the wrong place. I'm sorry. Oh, talking to myself.
Oh.
I worked, you're letting somebody in already.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
I'm going to mute myself.
I'm going to go ahead and play the video, I think.
Jeff, I have a question.
Yes.
I am a co-host. I am not. Oh, wait, never mind. I figured it out.
Okay.
All right.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll start in just a few minutes. We're still letting people in. But to let you know, while I'm presenting, if you have any questions about what I'm saying, would like clarification, just put it in the chat and Michelle or Jennifer will let me know that there's a question. I'm going to have chat off so I don't get distracted. If you have more general questions, please save that for the end of the presentation and we can talk then. So we'll start in just a few minutes.
Yay.
All right, just verification, Michelle or Jennifer, that you are seeing the beginning slide of the slideshow.
I am.
Okay. So we'll get started, and if you just keep an eye on the people as they come in, let them in, that'd be fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining this session on role of advocacy in PTA. I am the current Vice President of Legislation and Advocacy for First District. Next month, it will be Patty Scripter. She's had this role before, and she's been a mentor to me, so you are in very good hands. She's out of town right now, so I'm filling in. And let's get started. As I was saying beforehand, if you have any clarifying questions about what I'm talking about in the presentation, feel free to put those in the chat, and Michelle or Jennifer will interrupt me as I'm changing slides so I can respond to that. If you have more general questions about advocacy or legislation in PTA, save those for the end. We'll have plenty of time to talk. I don't anticipate this going the full length of the scheduled hour and 20 minutes, but maybe we'll have some good discussions. Move this out of the way. All right, so a little history on PTA. We are the oldest, largest volunteer association working exclusively on behalf of children and youth. PTA was founded in 1897, back when life was extremely difficult for children. And founders would not accept the conditions that children faced. So they acted and formed what would become the PTA. For those of you, and probably I know I've seen a lot of your names, so you don't have this assumption that PTA is all about room moms, fundraising, understanding that PTA is first and foremost a child advocacy organization. For more than 100 years, National PTA has promoted education, health, and safety for children, families, and communities, school systems, and to government bodies. This is the heart and soul of PTA. So speaking up for children are where decisions are made. So looking at the areas and where you are most effective in speaking up and advocating for children would be forums like school board meetings. Participating in LCAP development is super important. City council, your local legislators, get to know all of those members and let them get to know you. So you can continue an ongoing discussion and advocacy for the children in your area. When you're speaking for the PTA, be sure to carry the message And remember that you are speaking for all children, not just your children, or not just the children at your school, but all the children in the area. Advocacy does make an impact. These are some of the initiatives that the PTA has been instrumental in historically. So changing age for starting kindergarten, mandating access to free drinking water for all students, including testing for lead. Participation of parents in the LCAP and LCFF process, supporting bills to protect vulnerable children by requiring vaccinations, funding to continue to push the adequacy for ongoing core goal, and sponsored and passed the AB 2878, which is the Family Engagement Bill, and most recently supported the passing of the late start for secondary schools, which will be taking effect not this next year, but the following year. We are the largest child advocacy organization, as I said before, and for 123 years, we've worked towards improving the lives of children, youth, and their families in education. On this list of what we are, we're a powerful voice, we're a relevant resource for families, and we're a strong advocate for public education. Nowhere on this list is fundraising. It's necessary, but it should not be our core focus. And the key throughout these lists is in the focus on what's good for kids, unique in our focus, unique in our volunteer staff. So as I was saying, fundraising is not, we are a membership advocacy organization. Our focus is on advocacy, but membership is important. The strength of our numbers is what makes our advocacy powerful. That's why membership is critical. So we seek members to do our advocacy work. We don't do our advocacy work to affect membership. That is important to remember when discussing what we're advocating for. First and foremost is advocating for children and youth. We use this as a way of recruiting members. We do not change our message in order to recruit members. So our basic policies by California State PTA bylaws, we are non-commercial. That means we cannot endorse a product or a company. We're non-sectarian. We welcome members of all cultures, ethnic backgrounds, and those with political and religious beliefs. We are nonpartisan. Partisan is defined by the PTA to include any election official involving a candidate, even for nonpartisan offices such as school board or city council. So nonpartisan. PTA does not endorse or help any candidate or political party, including those, especially those running for school board or other offices. We do not invite only one candidate to speak at a meeting. We do not distribute candidate campaign materials at a PTA event. We focus on issues, not people. So there's lots of information on the CAPTA website, and Council and First District also provide support, and we have information on First District website. So basically, PTA does not endorse any candidate. We do endorse, we can endorse ballot initiatives, provided we follow the proper process. And please do not wear campaign paraphernalia at PTA events, especially if you're an officer. Let's see. So leaders and PTA members may campaign, but you must do it as an individual, but do not do it at a PTA event. PTA officers or board members must not use their PTA title, the name of PTA, or trademark a PTA. And this applies to current and past officers. Even if you are endorsing somebody for school board 3 years after you are no longer a PTA officer, you still may not use it in any written or verbal communication, implying that there is a PTA endorsement of this candidate. PTA is 501c3 organization, and to retain our tax exempt status, PTAs must not devote more than an insubstantial part of their activity to influence legislation. So we can advocate on behalf of bond issues and legislation, but it should not be a vast majority of what we're doing. We may also not participate in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to a candidate, as I stated before. So what does 501c3 means? It means we're charitable. It means we do good things. We are tax deductible. So there is a tax deduction for anyone who donates to the cause, including their membership. And we are not for private interest. We're not for private interest. So none of us benefits financially. None of the officers or members may benefit from being a PTA member. That means if you have an organization that is supplying a potential to supply supplies or party planning or something to the PTA, you may not benefit financially from that. And limited lobbying means no more than 5% should be spent on advocacy activities financially, which is different from educational activities. Your actions at the local level can have an impact on the 501c status of the entire organization. So please be mindful. If you have any questions about whether something that your unit or your council is interested in taking up and you're not sure, if you're not sure at all, please ask First District. If you feel like somebody in your organization is doing something that may jeopardize the 501c3 status, also report either to your board or to First District and get clarification on that. So local advocacy in PTA. So roles, what can the role be in elections? Elections are important and they're an important part of advocacy. We can register voters, including you can help have a voter registration drive at the local high school. You can host candidate forums. This is especially with school board, this is a really not just beneficial for your members, but it also really helps instill in those running for school board member the importance of PTA. So if they do, they will recognize PTA as being an important voice. And you can develop and publish candidate questionnaires, and you can support or oppose ballot measures, provided this has been approved by your unit or association. One thing I recommend when you are, if you're looking to host candidate forums or to develop and publish questionnaires, if you have any questions at all, seek out your local League of Women Voters. They are also 501c3, and they know all of the campaign rules related to roles in elections for nonprofits for 501c3. They're a really great partner. I've hosted some forums where co-hosted them with the League of Women Voters, where they've taken care of moderating, which removes PTA from sometimes an uncomfortable situation. If, let's say if a former PTA member is running for school board or their spouse, it helps to have a neutral body actually moderate the questions. So California State PTA positions. How does the state PTA take a position on legislation? Is the issue, and this also applies to at the local level. If you have a local issue that's coming up to vote, you would follow these steps also. So it must be in the areas to affect education, health, or well-being of children and youth. If it does not apply to those, then it's not a position that PTA takes. It must be of statewide significance, or it must be significance to your area. Fit within the purposes of PTA and the framework of the legislation platform, and must be consistent with recorded PTA positions. So the process, PTA prioritizes and authorizes, and that, you look at the issue. If it is in the PTA priority and it is in line with past position statements from PTA. So if you're at the local level and you look at the national or most importantly state PTA stance on that issue. If they have a position similar to that, then you could go ahead and study that. So then you would do form a study committee that would look at the issues, the pros and the cons. You put it on the agenda for your meeting, send out notification, present what the study committee has found, the study committee's recommendations, talk about the benefits of supporting an issue or the negatives of supporting an issue. Then the association votes on it, records it in the minutes. And when that is done, then the PTA can take an official position on an issue. Until then, only individuals can, and you must let people know that you are taking a position as an individual, not as a representative of the PTA. Once the association takes a position, then the president is authorized to speak on behalf of the PTA. So what does an advocate look like? So there are many key influencers. Parents are one of them, teachers, but the most effective advocates known to many of us are our children. They're fantastic advocates. Why? They're not afraid to ask what they want. They're persistent, and they are able to appeal to your emotional side, give you a variety of options to negotiate. And we'll try to make it seem as if it was your idea all along. Having children, especially as they get older, being a part of the process is important. Having them advocate to school board is very important. I do caution that, especially on very emotional issues, having very young children may be effective to tug at the emotional heartstrings of the school board, but I have seen some processes where it's been very traumatic for the children too. So please be mindful of that. Having a young child advocating for, let's say, not having their school closed can bring up a lot of really strong feelings that the child may not be prepared to deal with. So please be mindful of that. But children are very effective advocates. And as they get older, getting them involved in the process, because they often think of different angles that we may have not thought of, and some of the pros and cons. Work is required when it comes to advocating, a lot of work. Pardon me. So PTA districts, councils, and units are encouraged to be involved in legislative activities. So first and foremost, supporting California State national PTA positions on legislation needed to achieve the purposes of the PTA. I do recommend that everybody, even if you're not in the role of legislation and advocacy, to get the California and the national and also national PTA legislative newsletter that will, you'll get updates as to current legislation going through the state house, the Senate and the Assembly. When you get the state will tell you their position, and then you can use that as advocating on behalf of state PTA. Also lets you know what potential issues will be coming trickle down to the local level, let other your members know, and really have an informed membership. And then by supporting or opposing local issues that affect children in their respected communities based on study of the issues and vote of the association. If California State PTA has a position on something, your association or your council may vote to support, to also endorse that position, or you may stay neutral on it. You may not go against the state PTA's position. So if your association is in disagreement with a specific position that state PTA or national PTA has taken, you just remain silent on that. You can remain neutral on that. But if you are in agreement, it is best to get your association to, you don't have to do the full study. You can, because the work's already been done at the state level, you can bring the state's position statement, which shows what they've worked through, and then choose to vote to also endorse that. And then that gives the members, most importantly, the VP of Advocacy and the president, the authority to speak on behalf of your association.
Jeff?
Yes.
We've had one question. I don't know if you want to address it now or later, but if you could please give examples on maybe local advocacy or type of work that needs to be done.
Okay, so local advocacy, trying to think of something that, well, let's say, so one that was that is now state law was the late start for secondary schools. That was one that state PTA took a position on before it went through the Senate, the legislative process at the state. During that, some of the school districts, La Cañada, I know, was one of the first ones, advocated for it. And so other school districts started considering it, and that would be one where on a local issue, the local PTAs can take a position in conjunction with the state to advocate for it being done at the local level. Now it's no longer necessary because it is now state law and it will take effect. Other ones, local advocacies, financial issues are really big. Had a lot of questions last year on either bond measures, tax increase measures to like increase sales tax or parcel tax to support education. Those are ones that can be also divisive. People have different opinions on raising taxes for anything. And so, but that's one where quite a few councils were working on examining the pros and cons of, let's say, a parcel tax for their community to increase funding for education. So that would be one where you get a study committee together, study what the impact of the taxes would be on those that lived in the community, the benefits of the increased parcel tax on the community, and then the council or the association would take a position on that and use that. You can use that to help when advocating to city council, when advocating to the school board, in the local media. So school bonds often are a big one, bonds or tax measures to fund education. There can be other ones that could be at the even smaller level as far as school board, either over curriculum or advocating for maybe the way health ed is taught. So there are ones that have, PTA has a sort of a loosely defined position on, and you have a specific instance in your school district that you as a PTA would like to see the school district take a stronger position on. So that would be something locally that you could advocate for. One issue that has been coming up a lot as we have statewide declining enrollment is closing of schools. That can definitely be something that a council would want to look into. Again, things like personnel issues, teacher layoffs, something like that gets very tricky. We're not allowed to get into labor negotiations, labor disputes, personnel issues. But if it is taking a position for, let's say, arts education, you could definitely do that. But you wouldn't take a position on specific individuals in arts education, but you could advocate for an increase in funding for arts education. Does that help answer any of those?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So, So units and councils and PTAs are responsible for taking actions on local issues, originating in schools, cities, regions, and counties. So like I was saying, if it fits within the framework of the purpose of PTA, which is advocating for the health and the education and the well-being of children and youth, and it fits in with PTA policies, as I was saying, then that's an area where you could take an issue, take a stance on a local issue. So I talked a little bit about this beforehand, but PTA will appoint a study committee to gather the facts, investigate carefully, and prepare a final report. And when investigating carefully is not just investigating the local issues, but it really does help to look and see what national and state PTA have said about that particular issue, or more loosely about, may not be specifically about what's going on in your district, but it may be around mental health, let's say, and use that as some of the information in your report. District president should be informed of any projected study by unit or council. So please let Jessica Sheen know that if you are going to create a study, if you're a unit, or you as a unit or as a council, please let First District know that there's a study going on. We can be of support in that process, and might even be able to let you know of other units or councils that are doing similar studies. And then your unit or council must vote to support or oppose the issue. So advocacy urges action. Vote yes. Call your school board member. It's an action. It's persuasive. So this would be harmful. This would be helpful. Advocacy may be handed out at meetings, distributed on the sidewalk on a school property, or mailed home at PTA expense. This, again, is advocacy that has been already approved by your association or by the state PTA. Information is more even-handed. So that is just providing dispassionate information. The legislative analyst says, and a little side note here, I did recommend that you get the California PTA legislation newsletter. I also recommend that you go to the legislative analyst office in the California government and subscribe to that newsletter. You can actually select what information you'd like. So they have information related to education, and you can do kindergarten, you can do kindergarten through high school, you can do kindergarten through college. And that gets the LAO, which is nonpartisan, sends out information on, let's say, the upcoming governor's budget or pending legislation and how it sees it would impact. So I recommend that you subscribe to that also. It's a great source of information to know what may be coming through. So you get a jump on taking a position on something that may be coming up to the legislature, the Senate or the Assembly for a vote, and then you could be prepared to already have a position on that to garner support and call your legislators.
Jeff, would you mind repeating those two sites again, please?
Yes. So
Thank you.
so for your for the newsletter, go to CAPTA.org, California PTA, and under legislation, and we can go ahead and I'll make sure you get that information. You can subscribe to a newsletter, and then you choose what PTA information you want. And then if you do California Legislative Analyst Office, I don't know the exact thing, but it is, you can subscribe to the newsletter. And then when you do that, you get a series of check boxes to select what kind of information you want. So those are the two that I recommend everybody in PTA subscribe to. It's really great source of information. Again, information would be California State PTA has taken a position. So you're not advocating this, you don't have to vote on, you're just passing along information on items that pertain to what PTA stands for. Information can be sent home with kids, and as long as the principal approves. Anything that goes out through the school needs to be approved by the principal. You are using their resources. And then district-sponsored websites, emails, that you can send out information, letting people know what, let's say if there's an election coming up and there are 5 items on the ballot that pertain to children and education, and let's say one of them your association has voted to endorse, you can say, we are endorsing Measure C. We have no position on Measure D, but want to let you know that it affects children in this way. Here's a link to the analysis of it. League of Women Voters is a great, they may have that. So, or you send it, you just put a link to information on the website, like the registrar's website, that just lets people know what it is so they can make a decision for themselves. So you can provide information about a ballot measure without taking endorsement, as long as you are not appearing to endorse or not endorse it. But that is a good way just to make sure that your membership's informed before they go to the ballot. So you can get engaged right where you are here in First District. So every PTA meeting agenda should have a legislation and advocacy report on it. Even if you do not have somebody whose specific job is legislation and advocacy, the president can put something on, prepare a short report on it, or get somebody else to volunteer to prepare. But it should be on every agenda and focusing on PTA priorities and messages. Want it to be brief. Don't want to go on and sort of dilute and have people's eyes glaze over. So just pick the 3 or 4 most important things. And sometimes they may be repeated every meeting just to remind. I was very repetitive when it came to the census a couple of, it seems like years ago, but it was probably only a year and a half ago. Every month, just reminding people that the importance of the census, and to help encourage others fill out the census. When it comes time around an important election, just remind people to make sure that they are registered to vote, and to let people know how to find their polling place. So it's, you can repeat, but just make sure that the report is relatively short and the most important things affecting your community in the next month. Include next steps, like what people can do, call to action, links, or other information is really important to be able to hand out, or if you're on Zoom, put a link to it so people know what to do once you've told them of an issue. Let them know how they can act on that. And then tell them why it's important and why they should care. But be upbeat. So with messages, target messages, like what to add in your report. If you are wondering what you should be reporting on in that meeting, you don't have anything pressing in your community, check the CAPTA website for updates, see what's happening in Sacramento. That's why I really recommend having the newsletter come. It's a great source of information. The newspapers, your local newspapers, if you were able to go to a school board meeting, report on that information. And during the LCAP process, if you are not involved in the local LCAP process, hopefully somebody in your association is involved with LCAP. Get a report from them as to what's going on in the LCAP process. Let your members know in the next LCAP, either Parent Action Committee is going, or the regular LCAP meeting is going, so people can attend that. And then keep an eye on local and state budgets. So how the state budget may be affecting education for the next year. And right now is budgeting time. So what the local school board is proposing for their next year budget. Budgets have to be submitted the end of this month. So your school board meeting this month is usually the last time to get a really good look at what the school board is planning on for next year. So in order to strengthen public schools, requires that all of us work together and provide support for a public school system. Priority of California must be children and public education. And if you are not able to vote because of citizenship status or whatever, that still does not mean you cannot be an advocate. You can be a very strong advocate for your child. You can be a strong voice for your child and for all the children. Right. How to speak more effectively on PTA issues. Set your message agenda. So know what you came to say when you're advocating. So let's say you have a meeting with a school board member, or you are going to speak before a school board meeting, or you call up your local senator and you'd like to let them know your position on it, or even an email. No, but especially this really helps in person. Knowing what you came to say, focus on that, and then keep returning to your key points. It can be easy to get derailed. So just focus on, know what your message is, know the issues around that message, and know your information, and just be relentless about that. Be polite, but don't let the person you're talking to derail you. And so when speaking, think in headlines, think of catchphrases, something that sticks in a person's mind. Assert what's important at the beginning, so don't bury the lead. Make sure that first and foremost, the person you're talking to or the group you're talking to knows why you're there and what is important. And then spend a balance of the time providing information and data to why that is important. Be enthusiastic, be confident, be optimistic, stay cool. You are the face of PTA, and the more composed and the respectful and informed you are, the much more effective you are in conveying your message. And you can stay cool and still let people know that you're passionate about what you're talking about. So recap, 3 key points: talk in headlines, tell stories, personal stories related to something local that the school board member could relate to, that the city council person can relate to. Definitely helps not to show the local importance of it, but it also helps it stick in their mind. Keep it simple, and then repetition, repetition, repetition. So here are some resources to help you build your knowledge and understanding, not just for you, but for your other members. So definitely use these resources as a tool for yourself, but don't hog the information, share it out. Ed 100 is a fantastic resource for everything around education, including funding, understanding ed code. They have a really great series of lessons that you can go through based on, they have different chapters, different groupings, fantastic resources with links. I use it a lot of times when trying to explain, especially when it comes to the ins and outs of school funding, and how it may seem that your school district's getting millions of dollars, but then they can't afford a librarian, why certain funds are allocated a certain way and not, and others are not. So Ed 100, get familiar with it. It's a really great resource to learn, and then send the link to a certain page to somebody if they have questions. And encourage your school board members. I know Burbank got a lot of their school board members to participate in Ed 100. You can go through the series of lessons, and when you're done, you get a certificate that you have taken the whole series. I've gone back and done it a second time, and I've learned more the second time. So the information goes all the way from basic to really advanced. And often there are awards given out to units or councils that have members that have participated in completing all the lessons. So another great resource is EdSource. They have great stories on education, and you can get the articles on what's currently going on in education, and you can get that in your email inbox. I believe it comes out. I don't know if it's daily, but it's a couple times a week, I believe. So it's important to be informed, not just so you have all the answers, but so you can ask better questions. I mean, asking better questions is super important. Think about how you talk to your kids. How was school today? Okay, well, stuff like that. So kind of like in the way you've sort of changed how you talk to your kid to get more information out, that's the same type of type of thing you want to do when you're talking with your representative school board or your city council person. And so you can use the information you gain there in order to help start a conversation with somebody you're trying to sway. So here's some of these are great resources to get. So there's Ed 100, EdSource, California School Dashboard is the dashboard that has the LCAP and school data for your district, your school. It has a lot of information there that you can pull up and find out how each school is doing. California PTA, that's the CAPTA website, and then PTA.org is the national PTA. All fantastic resources. A quote from Thomas Jefferson, and then So I'll just read this out, and then we'll open up for questions. A child is a person who is going to carry on what you've started. He's going to sit where you're sitting and where you are gone. Attend to those things which you think are important. You may adopt all the policies you please, but how they will be carried out depends on him. He will assume control of your cities, states, and nations. He is going to move in and take over your churches, schools, universities, and corporations. All your books are going to be judged or condemned by him. The fate of humanity is in his hands, so it might be well to pay attention to him. Pay him some attention. Just the importance of educating our children. So thank you. And if you have any questions after this, please email legislation@pta.org, pta1.org. That will come to me for the next couple of weeks, and then Patty will be taking over that email address. And I will make sure I'm going to stop sharing. Excellent.
So Jeff?
Yes.
We had a couple questions that are very similar. If you could maybe speak a little bit more about LCAP, and is that, what changes can PTA and parents make to LCAP?
So LCAP is Local Control Accountability Plan, which is the plan for which the school district comes up with allocating a large chunk of funds that come to the school that relates to how certain programs are funded, especially students that have been identified as either needing extra resources. Thanks to PTA, parent engagement is now an important part of the LCAP process. And so in order to, so it is local accountability, which means community members and parents need to be a part of the process. This is no longer just up to the school board or the superintendent to identify how these funds are spent. It's a community-based process. Some school districts are much more open than others, but everybody has a right to be a part of this process. And so it's a long process. It's sort of a semi-complicated process. And so that's something that it helps to, and now is a good time to start learning about the LCAP goals go into the school budget. So right now, LCAP it changed a little bit because of COVID. Some of the restrictions were lifted, but now is a good time to start getting familiar with the LCAP process, learning about LCAP, because starting the school year, the process will begin over again. And it's a several year process, but getting PTA as a face, as a voice, is really important because it goes into what's called the LCFF, which is the local control funding formula, I believe, which is a formula on how the money is distributed. Did I have more clarification?
I see a hand. Let's see, Dina, I'll unmute you. Oops. Oh, wait. I'm having a problem.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, as a member of LCAP, I was selected by our school principal to participate in this particular program. And basically, it's like he was explaining, it's a group of all communities, parents, grandparents, teachers, whomever in the community, and we sit down and decide on how to budget different money and how to do allocations based on needs. We look at the homeless population within our district. We look at the underdeveloped as far as whether we need to increase our accessibility in English and reading, different resources, and how to, we all have different pinpoints. We go into group sessions and we debate. Everybody offered their ideas, and then we come together around a group of ideas and decide on how to allocate the budgets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the principals, school officials, especially if they feel like there are not enough parent community representatives in the LCAP process, because it is a requirement, they will seek out and recruit people that are active in the schools. But just because you haven't asked doesn't mean been asked. I mean, you can still attend. They are open meetings, and you can get minutes to those meetings. But yes, the principals, administrators will often recruit parents or community members or grandparents to participate, ones that they know that are already active in the school. It is a long process, and it really does focus on the funding that, such as English language learners, students that are classified as homeless, foster youth, so many marginalized students that have been given extra funds by the state. So this is how this process is determined, how those funds are spent to serve those students. So it's really important to have parent representation, community representation, or caregiver representation that are familiar with, let's say, if you're a foster parent, with the needs of foster youth in your community. Very important to be a part of the LCAP process. If you are a parent of or a caregiver of a student that is identified as special ed, very important to be a part of that process, because this is how a lot of those funds are spent to support these students. And nobody knows better what a special ed students need than parents and caregivers of students with special needs. I did put a link to some handouts, including this presentation in PDF format. And there's a few other handouts, including job description for advocacy chair and some strategy charts that you can use. I like the strategy chart, especially at the beginning of the school, is beginning of a new term, because you can sit down with your board and identify what key areas of interest that you want your advocacy chair to focus on during the year. It's nice to start out with just as you're starting out with the budget and you're setting that up right now, do that with advocacy also. What are the key things we're going to focus on this year? Who are the key players that we need to talk to? So that's in there. And then some tips on social media and advocacy. This can often be a hot topic, posting on Facebook or Twitter, especially if you have a personal account. It can get tricky because if you're posting under PTA, people may identify something you're posting not PTA. So just keep those things in mind when you're posting on social media, that even if you're posting to your personal account, it may have a reflection on PTA. So you may not be up against any hard rules, but still perception is important. There are other questions in here?
Jeff, we had one other question asking if there are examples of advocacy chairs leading DEI efforts. We realize this isn't a DEI presentation, but we would love your insights if you have something to share.
Of course, Scott asked that. Hi, Scott.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes. Yeah, I will be answering questions during the DEI. Absolutely. Advocacy is for advocating for all children, not just your own children. And advocating for all children, it doesn't mean you have to do it equally. You should be doing it equitably. So there are certain populations of children that need more resources, that may not have as many people advocating for them. It is definitely, DEI should be definitely in the lens of all advocates, to really examine how you're advocating. How does this impact especially marginalized groups? If you're not sure how it impacts marginalized groups, make sure that that is taken into consideration before you take a stand. Yeah, equity should definitely be at the forefront of all the advocacy, and really examining how we're doing what we're doing and who we're doing it for. Hopefully that answers that. And as far as a specific example, I am unfortunately not thinking of one at the moment. Well, let's see. For example, I know in Pasadena we had issues of school closures coming up. It came up several years ago. Scott's familiar with this. And there were a handful of elementary schools that were being looked at to being closed. And so there was really, PTA didn't take a position on it. But let's say if PTA were, you really need to look at not just the financial impact of whether this school closure benefits the district as a whole, but also making sure you're examining what families are impacted by school closures and whether some schools should be, you need to weigh that in, whether closing a school has a disproportionate impact on families with less resources. So that would be an example where you definitely need to take equity into account when advocating. As far as diversity, I think your advocacy chair should be working with a group and you do want to make sure you have diverse voices. You want to make sure that you have different cultural, ethnic, and also ability representation. Let's see, any other questions in here?
There are no new questions in the chat,
Okay.
but thank you.
I
People
do
are saying thank you.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome. And yes, we do have the so the presentation is available as a PDF in here. I did see somebody commented to me that we should number the slides, and thank you for that suggestion. That definitely we'll do that in the future. I see where that would make it easier to take notes on things. But hopefully with the PDF, you can go back and refresh your notes. Okay, LCAP, I see that. Okay, and did everybody get the links? And if you want, hold on just a second, I can see. I'm just looking for the newsletter for the LAO. I don't want to waste your time while I'm surfing the web.
I put that in there.
Oh, did you? Okay, thank you. Oh, I see it. Yes, right above where I was going to paste it. Thank you, Michelle.
My pleasure.
Okay, wonderful. Well, if nobody has any questions, then everybody can get up and stretch before our next session. But thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm available to answer questions the next couple of weeks. Oh, I see a hand raised, Dina.
One question.
No, I'm sorry. That was a hand clapping, not a hand raise.
Hand raise?
Oh yeah, Dina. Let's see.
Dinah?
Yeah, Dinah. Okay.
Okay, question. You mentioned that they're not supposed to benefit financially. Okay, this is my question. Say, for example, we're doing an event and the individual parent that's also a member of the PTA, possibly even on the board, she volunteers to make whatever it is we need. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it's okay for them to charge us for the materials and the supplies, but are they supposed to charge us a fee for doing it?
No. Unless there's a very specific thing that we can, like if there's a very specific issue you'd like us to look at, we can do that. But in a word, no. If they have a balloon supply business or something like that, and they're going to do the balloons, it is fine to charge their cost, but they should make no profit from their association with PTA. So, and unfortunately, sometimes that means they can't do the work, even though it would be, they're not intending to profit from it, but just the perception that somebody is profiting from it could cause more damage than the benefits of doing that. But if there's a specific situation where like they're the only ones providing the service, and let's say they have employees they have to pay, and it's very complicated, reach out to First District to get advice on that, just to make sure that bases are covered. Because not just we don't want somebody to use PTA for a profit, but we also don't want the perception that from members that their money is going to benefit somebody. So if in question, we want to be very transparent. So if in question, get first district to weigh in on it, and then let your members know, okay, let's say I have the balloon company. I'm the only one that does this balloon arches. I'm willing to do this, and break it down very transparently to the association. First district's weighed in. This is their opinion, and then let the association decide. So yeah, if it's just somebody doing something and they're just billing for the cost of materials and they can provide receipts, that's not a problem. But if there's any gray area, you want to be very open and transparent with your members to let them know that that this is what we want to do, but we're very concerned about the perception. And so, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I just want to add, Jeff, also, if you pay someone for services, you'll have to account for your workers' comp, like you'll have to report it.
Right.
So just keep that in mind too.
Yes, Angie knows that better than I do. So yeah, so it does bring up workers' comp issues. But yeah, I would say if in doubt, that's what first district's for. I would refer that to let the VP of leadership and copy the president on it also. And that would be the best, possibly the treasurer too, but I'd say the president and leadership, because this is more of a leadership issue than necessarily a financial thing. And they can definitely help you work through that, because that's not something that I would want any association to have to weigh on their own. Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. All right. And if you're in the DEI meeting in a few minutes, I'll see you then.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Is it lunchtime now?
Sure feels like it. And thank you, Michelle and Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't do much. It was all Michelle.
I'm sorry if I was a control freak there.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah.
I also went through, though, just as a backup for you, Michelle, and went through everybody who was on the list, and I checked them off. So let me know if you need.
Oh, bless you. Maybe, yeah. Please save that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll save it. I'll actually probably go into the attendance thing that's on our drive, and then just put an attendance piece part on it and just check them off.
Okay, perfect.
That's what I'm going to do for secretary, and then I'll do that for my next one too.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Well, have a lovely rest day. And
You too.
yes, thank you.
12:30 will be our next.
Yeah.
We have a little time. Okay, good.
Break time. Okay. I'm going to end the meeting now. Awesome.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.